Stay home. Those words have lived.
Can you share what evidence he's using to draw that conclusion? And what is the administration going to do differently in the next 2 to 4 weeks to stop the spread?
So the one thing I would note is that when you look at the mortality rate, we're seeing that our efforts here at the federal government have been working. And to give you an example of that, when you look at New York and New Jersey, there were 21 deaths for every 1,000 cases, 20 deaths for every 1,000 cases in the case of New Jersey. Those were the ratios we were seeing just a few months ago. Now New York and New Jersey are down 1.7 per 1,000 and 1.8 per 1,000 respectively. And moving beyond New York and New Jersey, we're seeing in Florida, for example, though they have 12 cases for every 1,000, it is 0.2 mortality for every 1,000 cases. In Arizona, 0.3 deaths for every 1,000 cases. So we are seeing that our therapeutics are working, that dexamethasone and convalescent plasma and remdesivir are working, and that's something good and something that the president takes note of.
But 2 to 4 weeks is such a short time period. I mean, what specifically are you doing to stop the spread?
There's a lot, and I'm very glad that you asked that because it is worth highlighting the work that we're doing each and every day. For one, we're surging personnel to Arizona, Texas, California. We already have people working in Florida, surging remdesivir to states that are seeing rising case numbers. We're also surging testing supplies to decrease turnaround time. These are several action items that Dr. Birx briefed me on before coming out here. The White House will be going to several states this week, Dr. Birx in particular, to Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, South Carolina. We've sent 19 HHS teams to metroplexes, 8 more coming this week. So we are aggressively on the ground reacting to this virus, and we're encouraged to see the declining mortality compared to a few months ago. Jim, I haven't seen you in a few weeks.
Yeah.
Glad you're back.
Thanks. Kaylee, why is the White House trashing Dr. Fauci and sending out opposition research like memos to reporters? The president has gone off on anonymous sources in the past. Why not have the guts to trash Dr. Fauci with your own names?
So President Trump, I'll refer you back, there's no opposition research being dumped to reporters. We were asked a very specific question by the Washington Post, and that question was, President Trump noted that Dr. Fauci had made some mistakes, and we provided a direct answer to what was a direct question.
Hasn't the president made mistakes? He suggested at one point that Americans inject themselves with disinfectants, that sort of thing. Why not send out these notes to reporters about what Dr. Fauci said in the past with your names on it? They were sent out by a White House official. The president has said he doesn't trust anonymous sources, and yet you were sending out these notes to reporters anonymously.
Look, I would note that in terms of the president and his record on coronavirus, he stands by the actions and the steps he's taken in this historic response. You have Dr. Fauci, who said that the record of this president is impressive. I can't imagine that under any circumstance that anybody could be doing more, and those are the words of Dr. Fauci. We provided a direct response to a direct question, and that's about it. And to the notion that there's opposition research and that there's Fauci versus the president couldn't be further from the truth. Dr. Fauci and the president have always had a very good working relationship.
Just a separate subject very quickly. Does the president or the administration plan to make it very clear to the Russian Federation that there should not be bounties placed on the heads of American soldiers serving in Afghanistan?
We make that clear each and every day to every country around the world that this president will always stand by our law enforcement. No one's been tougher on Russia.
Not law enforcement. I'm talking about military soldiers, U.S. forces
of course,
overseas.
That's what I'm saying. Our U.S. forces.
Not just any country, the Russians. Will you tell the Kremlin and President Putin not to put bounties on the heads of American soldiers?
What you're getting at, of course, we tell each and every country that, but what you're getting at is uncorroborated intelligence, and you're treating it as if it were true. To this day, there are varying views on the Russian bounty intelligence. DOD, NSC, and the ODNI all pointing that out. You know, I'm not going to answer a question based on unverified intelligence, but rest assured, every country in this world is put on notice that bounties on the heads of U.S. troops is unacceptable, and this president will stand for U.S. troops at home and abroad. Yes.
Thank you, Kaylee. You mentioned a quote from Dr. Fauci. Another quote from him when you compare us to other countries, I don't think you can say we're doing great. Is there any reaction to that from the White House?
No, when you compare us to other countries, we have the most testing in the world. When you compare us to other countries on case fatality rate, other industrialized nations, we're very low and beating most countries, if not all, in Europe. So we're doing a lot on the world stage, a lot right. Noted that we were supposed to have a ventilator shortage, and as it turned out, the U.S. actually sent ventilators all around the world. So the U.S. response has been historic, and by several metrics, including the three I just mentioned, we're beating the rest of the world.
Anthony Fauci.
Thank you. Kaylee, could you just clarify the scope of Roger Stone's clemency? A federal judge is asking for this. Does it only apply to prison time, or does it also include the 2-year period of supervised release?
I don't have the exact details for you on that, but I can follow up. What I will say is that the Roger Stone clemency was a very important moment for justice in this country. You had a completely bogus Russia witch hunt that found nothing, and in order to justify the waste of taxpayer dollars, you had Robert Mueller charging people with process crimes, and it's really curious to me that with Roger Stone, he's charged of false statements, but McCabe was charged of false statements, lying to federal investigators. Brennan, false statements to Congress. Clapper, false statements to Congress. But last time I checked, they didn't have 29 FBI agents wearing tactical gear, showing up at their house in a pre-dawn raid, wielding M4 rifles, sweeping across their lawn, as happened to Roger Stone. They didn't have 4 agents using battering rams, breaking down their front door over false statements. And they didn't have helicopters hovering over their houses and 2 police boats that roared up. Instead, McCabe and Clapper and Brennan and these guys are given lucrative contracts, books, contributorships. So there are really 2 standards of justice in this country, as Adam Schiff noted. Fortunately, he doesn't have the facts to back up the way he meant that term. Mario?
One more question, if I could. The president retweeted something this morning implying that he believes that he retweeted something saying that the CDC is lying about the coronavirus in order to hurt his chances of getting reelected. Does the president believe that the CDC is lying about COVID-19?
The president, with his intent in that retweet, expresses displeasure with the CDC, some rogue individuals leaking guidelines prematurely. You had a 63-page plan that was leaked prematurely. He believes that that misleads the American public when there are planning materials released that are not in their fullest form and their best form. So that's what he was getting at. But overall, the notion of the tweet was to point out the fact that when we use science, we have to use it in a way that is not political. When you had 1,300 health experts sign a letter not to condemn large crowds of protesters, but some same health experts say churches need to stay shut down, or lockdown protests somehow don't get the same First Amendment rights as the protest that we saw in our streets. We need to use science, lean into science, but not use it and cherry pick it to fit whatever our particular political persuasion is.
So he has confidence in the CDC?
He does. Mario.
Thank you, Kaylee. Given what we're seeing in Florida with the cases rising, is the president anticipating a scaled-down version of the convention next month? And if so, is that something that he would be content with?
That would be a question for the campaign, but we still plan to move forward with the convention here at the White House. But for particularities, I would point you to the RNC and to the campaign. Yes.
Just to close the loop on Dr. Fauci, does the president still appreciate the advice that he gets from him?
Certainly. Dr. Fauci is one of many on the task force who provides advice. And I would note, Dr. Fauci is an epidemiologist, an infectious disease expert, and he provides his opinion there. You also have other experts like Dr. McCann's Katz, who are behavioral health experts who provide opinions about the holistic health of the child, and she's been a voice for reopening schools and the damage long-term lockdowns can do. You have Dr. Mansaf Salawi, who's working on the vaccines. So there are a number of scientists who are experts in various issues and various specialties, but the president takes the full opinions of the task force and the varying opinions sometimes and moves forward in a way he thinks is best for this country, like he did with the China travel ban.
Secondly, Kaylee, the travel ban with Canada expires in about a week. Is that going to be extended? Or are you talking with Canada about that?
So no announcements now for our plans with Canada.
Yes, Arizona has more new cases of coronavirus than any country in the world, more than the European Union as a whole. So isn't by that metric the United States not doing as well as other countries in handling this?
No, because when you lead the world in testing, that means that you identify more cases.
Deaths are starting to rise.
And I would note, well, you talk about deaths. I can give you that particular information, which Dr. Birx gave to me before running out here, which is in Arizona, you have 17 cases per 1,000 population and 0.3 deaths per population, which means our therapeutics are working, and we're in a better place today than we were before.
Billy Bird, a school teacher in Arizona, died, however, when she was following all the rules. She wore a mask, she wore gloves, she was teaching summer school, she got it, died. 2 other teachers got it and are ill. Her family, her husband, her daughter. I mean, how do you tell parents of school children that it's safe to send their kids back to school when something like that happens?
Well, I would point you to the words of the CDC director, who said children are not very affected by this and typically are not spreaders in this, but I would also point to the consequences of staying closed. We have to look at the holistic health of the child, and when you have, according to HHS, 1/5 of all child abuse cases being reported by teachers and educational staff, we cannot stay closed. When you have DC Family Child Agency talking about a 62% decrease in abuse cases being reported, you cannot stay closed. When even the AAP, American Academy of Pediatrics, talked about morbidity and mortality if schools stay shut down, and 70 to 80% of children with mental health diagnoses receive their care in schools. The consequences are grave if we stay shut down. And there's a way for essential workers to go back to work just as our meatpacking facilities did, just as you all in the media are essential workers. We believe our teachers are as well. Catherine.
Thanks, Kaylee. The administration has said that the goal of maximum pressure is to force Iran back to the negotiating table so we can get a better deal. Is that still the goal of maximum pressure? And in light of the reported new trade and military partnership between Iran and China, what evidence is there that the policy is succeeding?
I have no information today to update you on our Iran relationship, which stays the same today as it has been. Yes, Daniel.
Thank you. I have 2 quick questions. President Trump's former chief of staff, Mick Mulvaney, who still has a role in this administration, he said in an op-ed today he still have a testing problem in this country and that he and his son have to wait for 5 to 7 days for results. If even President Trump's former chief of staff levels this criticism, doesn't that indicate we do have a problem with testing? Do you have a reaction to his op-ed?
Yeah, our reaction is that we've tested, we lead the world in testing. We've done more than 40 million tests. That's an extraordinary number. Admiral Joie gave us an update yesterday that on Friday we did over 800,000 tests. We tripled, quadrupled the number of tests. This is his exact quote. We have, and we also have 12,000 retail test sites that are there, and we're surging testing in basically every specific county that's having a problem. And Dr. Birx was just walking me through pooled testing, which will be a way to process tests at an even faster rate. So leading the world in testing, I would say it means we're doing a pretty good job.
Does the president have a reaction to the Washington Redskins dropping their name today?
Yeah, it's a good question. You know, I haven't talked to him since the specific announcement's been made. I have talked to him, but not specifically on that. But last week his tweet made it clear that these teams name their teams out of strength, not weakness. And he talked about the Washington Redskins and Cleveland Indians looking at changing their names. And he says that he believes that the Native American community would be very angry at this. And he does have polling to back him up. There was a Washington Post poll from a few years ago that 90% of Native Americans say they're not offended by the name. It is reflective of a 2004 poll. And the Washington Post notes that many of these Native Americans voiced admiration for the team name, like Barbara Bruce, who said, "I'm proud of being Native American and of the Redskins. I'm not ashamed of that at all. I like that name." Gabrielle Nez, another 29-year-old from the Navajo community, "I really don't mind it. I like it." And there are several other comments like this in the Washington Post. Deborah.
Thank you, Kaylee. I have a question myself.
All right, we're jumping out of the White House briefing here. I want to bring in CNN chief political analyst Gloria Borger and Dr. Peter Hotez, who is back with us to fact-check the medical side of this. Just a couple headlines that I want to highlight here. She repeated the president's total crap claim that when you lead the world in testing, you're going to find more cases. I mean, we can just look right at the statistics here of the 20 worst hit